Hey, what's up, YouTube family? Hey, I'm at work. I'm gonna be here for like another hour and a half. So I said, you know what? Let me go ahead and drop some more content for my folks, cause I ain't doing nothing. I'm not. I'm chilling. I'm reading. I bring my books to work for y'all to drop some content for y'all whenever I'm not doing much anything or just to read. So today we're gonna read out of the book called When the World Was Black, The Untold History of the World's First Civilizations. This time we're going to talk about migrations. How many migrations were there to the Americas? So we're going to get an understanding of the migrations, who they were, how they got there, the time they got there. So let's go ahead and get started. And this is the end of where I left off on my other content. I think the last time we talked in this book, we talk about the 500 nations. So this is after the 500 nations in this book. If you haven't checked out the 500 nations, please go check that out before you check out this one. And before the 500 nations, check out what was before that, so you can kind of get an understanding of the sequence that we're going in. So let's go ahead and get started. How many migrations were there? The native inhabitants of the Western Hemisphere are not all minor variants of the same people. That was a quote by anthropologist C. Loring Brace. For as long as scholars have been studying the indigenous people of the Americas, they have observed that they don't all look alike. This has led to decades of speculations about how many groups of people actually settled the Americas and who those people became. Figuring out the true story of the prehistoric people of any part of the world is like assembling a puzzle. With the story of the Americas, there's a big chunk of puzzle missing, and it's hard to put the picture together without it. You see, many indigenous nations of the United States aren't interested in being involved in DNA studies of human ancestry. This means there's a lot we don't know about millions of indigenous people in North America. I wonder why they don't want to be involved, though. Because they probably don't trust people, and I wouldn't blame them. Fortunately, we can figure out some of what's left unsaid by looking at what is being said. That is, studies of language can reveal a great deal about people and population movements. In 1492, an estimated 30 to 40 million Native Americans spoke more than 1,000 different languages. Renowned linguist Joseph Greenberg proposed that all these languages could be classified into three groups. Okay, so these languages can be classified into three separate groups. Here's one group: the Nadine family. These languages are spoken from Asia to Alaska, to northwestern America, with a few offshoots reaching as far as Mexico. The roots of Nadine may be in Siberia. So we talked about these modern Native Americans and where they're actually from. Siberia. They arrived between 6,000 to 10,000 years ago. Number 2, the Eskimo Inuit family. These languages are mostly spoken in Alaska, northern Canada, and Greenland, and include the languages of the Inuit people. Now, we talked about the Inuit people. They arrived 3,000 to 6,000 years ago. And lastly, the third one, the Amerind family. This is Greenberg's grouping for all the languages that don't fit in the other two groups, including isolated languages that don't seem connected to anything else, like the languages spoken by the people of Mato Grosso in Brazil. Some of these languages may derive from the original Australoid population of the Americas. Some are connected to languages found in Oceania. Other languages in the Amerind family appear to be related to the Afro-Asiatic language family. Others may have arrived within the first wave of Mongoloid migration to the Americas between 12,000 and 14,000 years ago. We certainly still don't know enough about the languages of the Americas. There remains considerable disagreement about how and when these language families arrived and who introduced them. But one thing is clear: what these language families suggest is that there were at least 3 waves of migrations into the Americas. Now, here's a couple footnotes down here. For example, in 2012 study, In a 2012 study, the Genographic Project of National Geographic Societies wrote to all the federally recognized tribes in the United States asking for DNA samples, but only 2 agreed to give them. In their defense, they're old samples from many indigenous nations that can't be consulted. For more on the Dene families, their possible connection to Afro-Asiatic people, see Unexpected Genes in Early America in the appendix of Part 2. And I have Part 2, that book. Another way to dig into the evidence by examining skeletal remains. Dr. C. Lauren Brace, a professor of anthropology at the University of Michigan, has analyzed over 1,500 skulls from across the North, Central, and South America, as well as their possible ancestors in Asia and Australia. Brace says the skulls suggest that people of the Americas came in at least 3 distinct waves, some of whom trace back to recent Asian ancestors, others to a Paleo-Mongoloid population that is no longer widespread in Asia, and still others to prehistoric Australoid people. How did they get there? From the distribution of the earliest sites in the Americas, it appears that there were 4 routes by which people arrived. Here we go, 4 routes. Check this out. From Southeast Asia and Oceania across the Pacific Ocean, sailing east into the west coast of Americas. From Asia, India, Siberia, China, and Japan along the northern land route across Northeast Asia into Alaska and then southward into North America. Number 3, from Africa, sailing west across the Atlantic Ocean into eastern, central, and South America, Olmec, Mexico, and Brazil. 4, from northwest Europe, island hopping from Greenland into northeastern Canada. Now, I will say that I don't believe that the true indigenous people of America came from Africa. Like I'm under the belief that America is the true old world. So I'm going to put that there. So we're going to continue with this, and the rest of this we're going to talk about across the Pacific. So this is going to be the last paragraph I'm going to get into before we go into the Pacific Northwest. So this is pretty much like a little extra I'm throwing in here. Almost all of the oldest American remains are found along coastal sites, and none of them look like the modern American Indians. They look like Australian Aborigines, Melanesians, Anu, Papuans, and South Indians. In other words, they look like black folks. Specifically, they most closely resemble Australoid people. How did they get here? It appears the Australoid colonization of the Americas came by way of maritime convoy rather than by land. They obviously had the technology to navigate these waters and the desire to do so. In August of 1999, BBC News reported on some of the evidence that supports this theory. How could the early Australians have traveled more than 13,500 kilometers, 8,450 miles at that time? The answer comes from more cave paintings, this time from the Kimberley, a region at the northern tip of Western Australia. Here, Graham Walsh, an expert on Australian rock art, found the oldest painting of a boat anywhere in the world. The style of the art means it is at least 17,000 years old, but it could be up to 50,000 years old. And crucial detail is the high prow of the boat. This would have been unnecessary for boats and used in calm inland waters. The design suggests it was used on the open ocean. They could have come and settled anywhere with boats landed. Boats landed, expanding southwards and northwards along the western coast before expanding inland. Because sea levels have risen 100 feet since that time, most of the sites where they first landed are probably buried underwater by now. We're probably also missing a ton of evidence from the Asian side of things as well. Still, there's plenty of evidence of an Australoid presence up to 20,000 years ago. All right, so the rest of this is going to be speaking about the Pacific Northwest, and we're going to get into that. But I just wanted to finish up. I just wanted to talk about the migration for now. So, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. If you guys want me to continue to talk about the Pacific Northwest and the people, the indigenous people there, please let me know. Please say something in the comments. Let's have a conversation. If you don't agree, then, say so in the comments and bring some evidence, bring some sources. You know what I mean? So I hope you guys like this, though. It's your favorite black guy from Nebraska. Yes, there's black people in Nebraska. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.